Yeah. In Thinking Fast and Slow, the psychologist Daniel Kahneman described the human mind as operating in two basic modes of thought. System 1, thoughts are typically fast, automatic, effortless, associative, and implicit, which means they are not available to immediate introspection. They often carry a lot of emotional weight and are ruled by habit, and as a result are very good at getting us hooked. System 2, thoughts are slower and more deliberate. They require much more effort and a deeper level of attention. They are also more flexible and amenable to rules that we consciously establish. It is these system 2 operations that allow us to create the space between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl spoke of, the space that provides for the full expression of our humanity and allows us to thrive. I remember once watching Bill O'Reilly talking with David Letterman. The conservative pundit posed some question and then began to badger the comedian, saying, "It's an easy question." Letterman responded, "It's not easy for me because I am thoughtful." Dave gave a big round of applause. Dave got a big round of applause. As mentioned, quick intuitive system 1 thinking can sometimes be powerful and accurate. Dr. Gerd Gegenrenzer, the director of Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin, and one of the scientists whose work was discussed in Malcolm Gladwell's bestseller, Blink, is a social psychologist known for his work on intuitive thinking. He describes these kinds of gut responses as something of a mystery, even to the person feeling them. All we know is that they rely on simple cues in the environment, while filtering out other information that are conditioning or life experience or obliviousness or habit tells us is not necessary. Some intuitive responses arise from practice and skill. There's the chess master who can glance at someone else's game in progress and rattle off the next dozen moves, or the coronary care nurse who can spot a heart attack a mile away, or the firefighter who knows when it's time to evacuate. Now, but System 1 gut responses have a dark side. When heuristics begin to dominate the way we process information and behave, we wind up applying our rules of thumb in appropriate ways, which makes us less able to detect unusual distinctions or new opportunities. We lack agility. The average moviegoer immersed in watching a film can miss details and errors in story or scene continuity, such as when an actor is holding a cup of coffee in a close-up but not in a wide shot 2 seconds later. In the lab, researchers have had participants watch short videos that contain deliberate continuity errors. During a filmed scene of conversation in which the camera switches back and forth from one speaker to the other. For example, one of the characters' clothing keeps changing, or a character stands up to answer the phone, the camera angle changes, and in the next shot, the character is being played by an entirely different actor. On average, 2/3 of participants watching don't notice these errors, even when the main character is the one who's replaced. The same researchers behind those experiments did another study in which an experimenter stopped individual students on a campus to ask directions. While each student and the researcher conversed, 2 other members of the research team walked between them carrying a wooden door. In a sleight of hand move worthy of Penn and Teller, the team members used the opportunity to switch places so that when the visual barrier, the door, was removed, the original seeker of direction had been replaced by a different person. Astoundingly, half the students in the experiment failed to notice the switch and wrapped up the conversation as if nothing had happened. A tragic real-life example of this phenomena took place in Boston in the pre-dawn hours of January day in 1995 as a police officer named Kenny Conley was pursuing a shooting a suspect up and over a chain link fence. Officer Conley was so focused on catching the bad guy that he failed to notice something else happening at the scene. Other cops were savagely beating another man they assumed was a suspect, but who was in fact an undercover officer. Later in court, Conley testified that he ran right past the place where the brutal assault of his colleague took place, but with his tunnel vision directed on his own task, he didn't even notice it. The lesson: once our minds slip in default mode, it takes a great deal of flexibility to override this state. This is why specialists are often the last ones to notice common sense solutions to simple problems. A limitation economist Thorstein Veblen called the trained incapacity of experts. Inflated confidence leads old hands to ignore contextual information, and the more familiar an expert is with a particular kind of problem, the more likely he is to pull a prefabricated solution out of his memory bank rather than respond to the specific case at hand. In another study, psychology professionals were asked to watch an interview conducted with a person they were told was either a job applicant or a psychiatric patient. The clinicians were instructed to apply their expertise and evaluate the interviewee. When they believed the interviewee was applying for a job, the professionals characterized him as normal and fairly well adjusted. When told that he was a patient, however, they described this same person as distressed and impaired. Instead of paying close attention to the actual person in front of them, the clinician relied on the superficial cues that, through long time experience, allowed them to make diagnoses in their sleep. Truth be told, they might as well have been asleep. In general, experts or people who are highly regarded in any field are often hooked on their own self-importance. But sometimes status or accomplishment in one realm has no relevance in another. A group of stockbrokers I once met at a conference all agreed surgeons were notoriously bad investors because they would listen to investment advice only from other surgeons. The irony is that the stockbrokers, in their consensus of the surgeon's poor investment prowess, were also using a very blunt rule of thumb. And CEOs on corporate team building retreats out in the wild often assume that they should be in charge, failing to consider that the young guy just out of the army who works in the mailroom might be better equipped to lead an exercise that involves climbing rocks and dangling from ropes. People who are hooked into a particular way of thinking or behaving are not really paying attention to the world as it is. They are insensitive to context. Whatever the context, rather they are seeing the world as they have organized it into categories that may or may not have any bearing on the situation at hand. People frequently die in fires or crash landings because they try to escape through the same door they used when they entered. In their panic, they rely on an established pattern instead of thinking of another way out. In the same manner, our suffering, our disengagement, our relationship challenges, and our other life difficulties are almost never solved by thinking in the same old automatic way. Being emotionally agile involves being sensitive to context and responding to the world as it is right now. We certainly don't want to put an end to the thoughts and emotions coursing through us, because that would mean the end of us. But once again, the question is, who is in charge, the thinker or the thought? Are we managing our own lives according to our own values and what is important to us, or are we simply being carried along by the tide? When we are not in charge of our own lives, when we are not acting according to our own thoughtful volition and with the full range of options that a perspective perceptive intelligence can conjure, that's when we get hooked. Just read it once again. When we are not in charge of our own lives, when we are not acting according to our own thoughtful volition, and with the full range of options that a perceptive intelligence can conjure, that's when we get hooked. Anybody would like to continue from the four most common hooks?
I can read if there is no one. No one wants to read today? Okay, I'll read then.
Actually, I have net problem. It's not working properly again and again reconnecting, so I'll not be able.
But we can hear you properly, Suman. If you want to read, you can.
Yeah.
Like you try.
Uh,
If there is a disturbance, we'll let you know.
okay, sure. Hook one, thought blaming. I thought I would embarrass myself, so I didn't mingle at the party. I thought she was being aloof, so I stopped sharing information on the project. I thought he was going to start in our own finances, so I walked out of the room. I thought I would sound stupid, so I didn't say it. I thought she should make the first move, so I didn't call. In each of these examples, the speaker blames his or her thoughts for his or her actions or inactions. When you start thought blaming, there is not enough space between stimulus and response. In Frankel's terms, for you to exercise real choice, thoughts in isolation do not cause behavior. Old stories don't cause behavior. We cause behavior. Yes, next. Hook to monkey mindedness. Monkey mind is a term from meditation used to describe that incessant internal chatterbox that can leap from one topic to the next like a monkey swinging from tree to tree. Maybe you have a fight with your significant other, though it could just as easily be your parent, child, friend, or co worker, and he stomps out the house. As you ride the train to the office, you find your mind buzzing. Tonight, I am going to tell him just how frustrated I feel when he criticizes my parents. This anticipatory thought turns into a mock conversation in your head as you plan for the interaction. He might say something else nasty about your parents, so you will respond with a comment about his loser brother. You forecast what you think he might say and plan your responses. By the time you get to work, you are completely worn out from the intense argument you have had inside your own head. When we are in a monkey mind mode, it is easy to start awfulizing, imagining worst case scenarios, or making too much of a minor problem. It is a huge sap of our energy and a complete waste of time. Even more than that, when you are spinning these imaginary dramas in your head, you are not living in the moment. You are not noticing the flowers in the park or the interesting faces on the train. And you are not giving your brain the neutral space it needs for creative solutions, maybe even the solution to whatever it was you were fighting about in the first place. Monkey mind is obsessed with the push of the past. I just can't forgive what he did. And the pull of the future. I can't wait to quit this relationship. It is also often filled with bossy, judgmental inner language words like must and can't and should. I must lose weight. I can't fail. I should not feel this way. Monkey mind takes you out of the moment and out of what is best for your life. Yeah, next, please. Hook 3, is old, outgrown ideas. Kevin desperately wanted to be in a serious relationship. On the surface, he was fun and frivolous, but deep down, he was closed and distrustful and kept women at arm's length. Predictably, all
We are not able to hear you now. Yeah, Suman. Okay, I'll just take over, I think. Predictably, all these relationships fizzled. Kevin told me his father had been an abusive alcoholic who would mock and beat him for his shortcomings, sometimes in front of his friends. As a child, Kevin learned not to show sadness or share vulnerabilities because his father would use them against him. This lesson was, if even the people you're closest to will turn on you, it's better to remain detached from your feelings and from everyone around you. Kevin's behavior was completely functional when he was a small child. It protected him emotionally, and it kept him physically safe physically. But that was then. 20 years down the road, Kevin's distrust was constricting him like a too small pair of shoes. He behaved as if he was still living his childhood trauma each day. When he needed What he needed was the emotional agility to adapt to the very different, much more positive circumstances of his adult life. His old, uncomfortable thought process simply didn't serve him anymore. One of my coaching clients, Tina, had recently been passed over for a promotion to CEO of a large financial services company. At the start of her career, she had worked as a trader in New York in a hard hitting and male dominated environment. On the trading floor, yes. Suman, are you back? Yeah. I just took over the reading because you were not audible.
yeah,
You
yeah,
want
now,
to?
yeah, now I'm
Yeah.
now.
Your voice is still breaking, but
Now okay?
yeah. Do you want to read?
Yes, yes, I can now.
Yeah. Go on, go on.
I have joined from another device. Yeah. So from here,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
one of my coaching clients, Tina, had recently been passed over for a promotion to CEO of a large financial services company. At the start of her career, she had worked as a trader in New York in a hard hitting and male dominated environment. On the trading floor, she learned that taking about her personal life was taboo, and she needed to show that she was just as strong as the rough and tumble guys around her. This worked for her on the trading floor, and she loved her job. But when she moved to a new organization, she realized that people didn't want to follow an automaton. She needed to show some emotion and authenticity, but struggled with allowing herself to get close to anyone. Like Kevin, she was living out an expired story. What got her this far was not going to take her any further. She needed the agility to adapt to changing circumstances. Hook 4, wrong headed righteousness. They say in a court of law, you never get justice. If you are lucky, you just get the best deal possible. In so many other areas of life, we hang on too long to the idea of justice or of vindication or of having it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are right. Anyone who has been in a romantic relationship for more than a few months knows the moment in an argument, especially with a loved one, when you realize, the troubled waters have calmed. Some kind of understanding, a truce perhaps has been reached, and the best thing you could do now would be to shut your mouth, let it go, turn off the light, and go to sleep. Then something compels you to say just one more thing to demonstrate that. In fact, you were right and your spouse was wrong, and all hell breaks loose again. The same need to have the rightness of your cause validated or your unjust treatment confirmed can steal years from your life when you let it. Next, please. When you let it persist. In many families and in many parts of the world, feuds have endured for so long. No one can actually remember the original misunderstanding. Ironically, this merely prolongs the injustice because you are depriving yourself of other good things that you value, such as the warm connection of family or friends. I love the phrase we use in South Africa to describe this type of self defeating phenomena: cutting off your nose to spite your face. The ancient Greek master of paradox, Heraclitus, said that you can never step into the same river twice, meaning that the world is constantly changing and thus always presenting us with new opportunities and situations. To make the most of it, we must continually break down old categories and formulate new ones. The freshest and most interesting solutions often come when we embrace the beginner's mind, approaching novel experiences with fresh eyes. This is a cornerstone of emotional agility. A generation or two ago, society was pretty set on what constituted male activities and female activities. Now, you could get punched in the nose for assuming such a rigid distinction. Similarly, some of us tend to pigeonhole ourselves, failing to recognize our own worth as an individual, seeing ourselves narrowly and exclusively as a rich person or a fat person or a geek or a joke. We learned a long time ago that the self categorization of Mr. Johnson's wife was a limiting and losing proposition, but so is CEO or a man among men, or smartest kid in the class, or even Super Bowl uh, quarterback. Things change. We need flexibility to ensure that we can change too. Emotional agility means being aware and accepting of all your emotions, even learning from the most difficult ones. It also means getting beyond conditioned or pre programmed cognitive and emotional responses, your hooks, to live in the moment with a clear reading of the present circumstances, respond appropriately, and then act in alignment with your deepest values. In the chapters that follow, I am going to show you how to become an emotionally agile person who lives life to the fullest. Chapter 3, Trying to Unhook.
Yeah. Just wait, like just a minute. Like Maniselvi, do we want to continue or how?
Yeah, we'll continue a couple of pages more and then we'll break out for discussion.
Okay. Suman, you can read till how much ever you want, and then if anyone else wants to take the reading, they can. Yeah, you decide.
If anyone wants to take, then
I can take it up. Vidya here.
yeah, please.
Trying to unhook. The count will vary depending on which, 1 minute. The count will vary depending on which expert you ask, but for our purposes, let us say that there are 7 basic emotions: joy, anger, sadness, fear, surprise, contempt, and disgust. As we've already seen, all these emotions are still with us because they've helped us survive through millions of years of evolution. And yet, 5 of them, anger, sadness, fear, contempt, and disgust, are clearly on the not so comfortable end of the affective spectrum. Surprise can go either way. What does it mean that most of our emotions reflect the dark side of human experience? If so, many of our emotions are troubling and yet helpful enough to make the cut of natural selection. Doesn't that mean that even the dark and difficult feelings have a purpose? Is that why we shouldn't try to avoid them, but rather should accept them as a useful, though somewhat uncomfortable part of our lives? Yes, precisely. But learning to accept and live with all our emotions is by no means what most of us do. Most of us use default behaviors that we hope can deflect or disguise our negative feelings so that we don't have to face them. Others settle deeply into these feelings and struggle to get beyond them. Or we attempt to cope with difficult times and difficult emotions through cynicism, irony, or gallows humor, refusing to admit that anything is worth taking seriously. As Nietzsche said, loosely translated, a joke is an epitaph for an emotion. Still, others try to ignore their feelings, and like the more contemporary philosopher Taylor Swift said, shake it off. When we try to unhook simply by killing off our feelings, the real victim is our own well being. To see where your responses fit within the spectrum of these less than effective solutions, try these scenarios on for size. 1. Your boss makes a change that upsets you. You are most likely to A. Ignore your frustration and anger. It will go away eventually, and you have other stuff to deal with. B. Think long and hard about what you'd like to say to your boss, rehearsing the I'll say and he'll say lines over and over in your mind. C. Spend some time thinking about why the change upsets you.
glass करो.
Make a plan to talk through this with your boss and then get back to work. So you want me to read each one of these because this is all like multiple choice? Should I continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Your 3-year-old leaves his toys on the floor. You come home from a tough day at work, trip over them, and
Do
yell
we
at him.
want to do it sorry, I just rather than just reading, do we want to just Manisalvi, how do you suggest? Like, shall we just, or maybe we can just do it later? What do you suggest? Because this is like a quiz kind of a thing, right? Like
Yeah,
where you
this is
choose.
just for us to understand, that there is a set pattern in which we function normally. And if we are just going through this example for us to reflect, which of one will apply for us? So we can read through, not a issue.
Okay.
So you can see that for the statement in the first line, which comes to your mind immediately. That is what we are trying to understand here. Just to reflect back that we normally go into a pattern or we sink into a loop of behavior, and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to look into the context or look into what has to be done in the present moment, which will be beneficial for the goal, and we go into an auto mode. So for that, I think we can read at least 2-3 and then we can shift if there are many.
Okay. So afterward, I'm continuing from where I left off. Afterward, you are most likely to A, brush off your frustration, telling yourself it's fine, I just had a long day. B, chastise yourself all evening for yelling at your son, wonder why you always respond this way, and conclude you are the world's worst parent. Sit down with your spouse to discuss your day, realizing your reaction to your son came from your frustration with your boss. Give your son a hug and an apology and put him to bed. C, you are going through a painful romantic breakup. You go out drinking with friends to distract yourself. You might even meet some new people. That will help numb the pain. Sit at home alone wondering what you would have done differently. Why are you so bad at relationships? C, feel upset for a while. Write about the experience or talk to your friends and learn from it. If you answered A, for most of these questions, you are a bottler. Bottlers try to unhook by pushing emotions to the side and getting on with things. They are likely to shove away unwanted feelings because these feelings are uncomfortable or distracting, or because they think being anything less than bright and chipper is a sign of weakness or a surefire way to alienate those around them. If you are a bottler who hates work, you might try to rationalize away your negative feelings by telling yourself, at least I've got a job. If you are unhappy in your relationship, you might immerse yourself in a project that just has to get done. If you are losing yourself in the busyness of caring for others, you might push your sadness or stress aside by reminding yourself that your time will come. If you are leading team members who are deeply anxious about budget cuts and proposed restructuring, you might tiptoe around these subjects for fear of opening up an emotional can of worms. Shall I continue? Even with the important caveat that people don't always behave according to the gender norms found in research, it usually comes as no surprise to my clients when I tell them that men are more likely to bottle than women are. When I first began studying psychology in the 1990s, there seemed to be a cottage industry producing books that explored gender differences in emotional style. Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, written by relationship counselor John Gray, sold 10 million copies. Another hugely successful book from that era, You Just Don't Understand, by linguist Deborah Tannen, explores the different ways men and women use language to communicate, or more precisely, to not communicate. Today, you can see a parody of these stereotypical communication styles in the online comedy clip, It's Not About the Nail. In this video, a young woman appears on the screen lamenting her frustrations to her boyfriend. There's all this pressure, she says. I can feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's ever going to stop. The camera pans to the left, and we see a nail sticking out of her forehead. Her boyfriend then tells her matter-of-factly, You do have a nail in your head. It's not about the nail, she cries. Stop trying to fix it. You always do this. You always try to fix things when all I need you to do is listen. He sighs and tries again. That sounds really hard. I'm sorry. It is, thank you, she says. She leans in to kiss him, and the nail slams further into her forehead. Ow! The video is funny because it holds a nugget of cultural truth. Men are usually seen as task-focused fixers and women as more emotional beings. And the blonde boyfriend in the video displays classic bottling behavior. Tie it up, push it forward, move on, action, action, action. His girlfriend after all, does have a nail in her head, and it behooves him to point this out and find a solution. The problem with bottling is that ignoring troubling emotions doesn't get at the root of whatever is causing them. Yes, the nail is causing the pain, but how did the nail get in her head in the first place? The deeper issues remain. More than once, I've met bottlers who find themselves years later in the same miserable job, relationship, or circumstance. They've been so focused on pushing forward and being a blue doobie that they haven't been in touch with a real emotion in years, which precludes any sort of real change or growth. Another aspect of bottling behavior is trying to think positively to push the negative thoughts out of your head. Unfortunately, trying not to do something takes a surprising amount of mental bandwidth, and research shows that attempting to minimize or ignore thoughts and emotions only serves to amplify them. In a ridiculous...
Thanks, Vidya. We'll stop here for the day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyone would like to talk about what resonated? Anything stood out for them, or anything related to this topic which they want to share from their experience? Please feel free to speak.
I could resonate with the bottled up and those quiz that they have given. I like that, and I could resonate with that. It's very true. And yes, it is kind of gender bias with the books and everything, the reference they gave. I could relate with the references that they have given. Even the blink, this thing, earlier example of the blink where things can be done, that also I could relate with. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Manselvi, today's topic, yes, I resonate with the questions and answer section because that is where you investigate or reflect on your own emotional state. Maybe boss asking you to do something which upsets you. So that kind of questions actually, once I start asking myself, that actually resolve the situation there and there only for me at least, understanding why those emotions are, why those are triggering. And as I mentioned to you, this EFT technique, definitely I will share this in future. While going through those techniques, definitely it helps you because all those responses, emotional responses which we give to the situation, we think that used to think that it is because of the boss or because of the external situation. But when I started using these practices, any of these practices, then I came to know that those are actually from childhood incidences or whatever that happens in the past. So these are all the just automated trigger responses which I need to change. So yes, this question answer thing which I really like because that is the first point, taking back control. Okay, that is one thing. Second, at the beginning, author mentioned about the scenarios or the examples which I really resonate. For example, Zero Limit book, the Honopono technique, that the author exactly explained the same thing, because he used to work in that mental hospital where all the patients are actual mental. And when he went, without seeing them, without touching them, he cured the whole mental hospital, all the patients, just using this one technique. And in that book, actually, I got this insight saying that I completely agree, after going through that examples, that yes, doctors, where if he's a heart specialist, he looks everyone as a heart patient. So I have witnessed that many times. If a person is if a person is a compounder in dispensary, but at home she behaves like a doctor. She prescribe medicine to many. I've seen this type of example. So that again example sinks with me. The professional people, they when last time I went to CA, and I gave my business account to him. And in that, this thing, he just keep on adding the price tag to my account, that I will provide this service, that service. So he's just looking at me as a customer. That's it. He's not at all seeing any other thing. So I like that example as well. The people see from their perspective. And very last example, which I just remember, again, the monkey mind, or the author just mentioned the hooking, the blame game, or the monkey mind. That particular example I learned. There used to be one a female Marathi movie director, Smita Talwalkar, and she has done many Marathi movies. In one of her interviews, she mentioned the same thing. Like she used to threaten by many goons and the people before advertising her movies and everything. So actually, interviewer asked her that how you handle such a pressure, and I was really keen to understand her answer, that how she cope up within industry which is male dominating. And she's very successful female director, and she explained the same thing, like, I do not follow means in today's this, after reading this one, it's like she's not following any monkey mind thing. Like she do not think a lot at the beginning, or when threats comes to her. She says that basically when you do overthinking, it takes sucks all your energy, and when actual situation comes, you do not have any energy to face the situation. So she said many of the decision I took there and there only. So that example I heard in my college days, but that is resonate with me for many situation in my life. That yes, sometimes you have to take the decision on the spot. You do not have to spend your energy overthinking or any particular matter. But yeah, that again requires practice. Again, it comes from the experience. But I love, yeah, that is what I just while reading I came across this kind of experiential or something I learned in past. So thanks for today's topic. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, anyone else would like to add? Okay, so I'll just summarize what stood out for me in today's reading. So we were talking about being hooked. So what are the hooks is specified today in the reading? So first one is thought blaming. We assume certain things, we think that this is right, and we rely on that thought and we take the action. Most of the cases, we will assume that I thought it is disrespectful to speak at that time, so I didn't speak. So mostly thought blaming in my case would be more that I have avoided something because of some deeper pattern, or I would have not taken any positive or something more as a greater action which I could have taken, due to this thought blaming being the hook which stopped me in that pattern of thinking. Then the monkey mind, I think Milind elaborated well on that. It really blows up. It brings out the awfulness more than what can be seen as a good thing in the situation. And it exaggerates it into such kind of a fantasy, which, does make it more difficult to solve than what it actually is. Third, they have mentioned is old and outgrown ideas. So somewhere we seem to be changing every day in many aspects, but some things are helping us to stay in our old patterns as well. In those old patterns, certain things over a time period are actually losing its importance or rather not working anymore. So we don't do this kind of a stock keeping where we go and reflect back that is this still working for me or I need a change. So this I feel mostly in the value system and the way we identify ourselves, that no longer we are the small child that used to be afraid of certain things, or we no longer are of the same value system that we value maybe money more because we would have obtained a bit of money at later part of age, and then our more important is for the satisfaction from the work that we get. So this kind of a stock taking or reflection will remove these old outgrown ideas, and we can give us a chance whenever these things come up in our life to change it for something better. Fourth was righteousness. We are right, so we somewhere have this, some can call this as ego, but something we are pattern to that I need to prove myself right. I see certain people going at length to show that, and that really comes out bad at the end, maybe, but they are satisfied that they have justified themselves. But yes, I see this pattern in me also at times and others also, which actually is not required. We have to somewhere uphold the goal of the situation, which can be higher than our personal goals, especially in business environment. We will have to deal with it, even in family environment, which we might not be dealing with so tenderly. I think we should also start doing that. Next, the authors stated that things change, and to keep pace with the change of life, one has to reset, recalibrate to the beginner's mindset. So we have to see things from a novice perspective. We have to see things from a contextual perspective. We'll have to take pauses. We'll have to reflect back. And that's what will stop us from making these rigid distinctions between things and understanding them in a very typical way, that how it has to adapt to the situation. One thing which stood out is this narrow perception that I am the CEO, I am the mother, I am the manager here. These narrow labels, when we put ourselves into, leads to narrower life. So we'll have to step out whenever required from these narrow interpretations, so that we actually grow and we look deeper into life and understand it better, and as well as grow. Otherwise, we'll limit ourselves to the narrow labels that we give ourselves. Now, coming to unhook. how do we unhook from these things? The author has actually bifurcated it, people into two categories. In case of emotional mishandling, I would say some people bottle up, so they are called bottlers, is what she has referred, and some are brooders, right? So today we read about bottlers. So how people bottle up emotions and don't see a solution to that. So what happens is they carry on with the excuses in mind that, and try to justify why they can stick to the emotion rather than release or deal with it. The very relevant, the fight still goes on between what a man should do and what a female should do. And even though we have been liberal and open and all things, but in the society, subtly, those messages are still making rounds that we need to continue, to look at men as more responsible for bringing in the money and females to manage the family. But we are yet to achieve maybe a state holistically that both are the nourishers of family in their own unique way. So I think this is what I really stood out today also, that we need to address the basic things that society or the way we have brought up, the values have been given. We have to take stock of whether it's still valid for us, whether really we want to go ahead seeing the change in the world around us, within us, and the way our lives have shaped so far, what holds good still and what seems to be stagnant or not yet, not conforming with what is there. So that kind of a stock taking will help. In this emotional release, as I had, Milinji had explained, that there needs to be certain techniques that one can look into. Yes, these techniques will need some kind of a reflection, as well as these techniques may sound simple, but they would need a settled mind and a pause in a life to check that where we are heading and how do we deal with these difficult emotions. So we have to actually make something as part of our life to reflect back, to see what emotions are standing out which are disturbing to us, and then deal with it. It will not immediately pass just as if we just go through this book and just get a basic understanding. Yes, at a unconscious level, we might, it might bring some kind of an awareness, but it might need a bit more work to actually implement it. Yeah. So anybody else would like to share, or should I go ahead and present a few points which I wanted to discuss separately in relation to this book, but I felt that those things need a bit more deliberation on. Anyone?
Yeah, please you explain it. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. So today, actually, I wanted to focus on the emotional loops that we go into. So let me start with the story of Cinderella. I hope everybody is well versed with the story or some versions of it. For me, this story is very important because I feel Cinderella symbolizes humanity. Cinderella symbolizes the reality of life. Cinderella symbolizes for me a dream that everyone dreams of, and she also symbolizes the human spirit of going forward in spite of any hindrances that we, or any ups and downs in life. So I just try to analyze or flip the story, that if Cinderella was not what she is, I believe she was emotionally agile. So I just was trying to compare, if she was not emotionally agile, how would things be turned up? Would it be turning up in a way, in a positive way, how it happened in the original story, or would there be a twist and turn and there would be an entire flip of the narrative? So I just put across some things just to bring forth as to how things, if go in a different, made different choices, can go to lead to a totally different goal. So her parents died, but she still had hope in her. She grieved, but she held to the hope. In her mind, she was good to everyone, and she she invited her stepmother also, in spite of her abuses. She knew that she had goodness in her. She did not go into a phase that she deserved a mistreatment, or she can also mistreat others. When she got the invitation for the ball, she said yes, and she sought help to the fairy godmother to help her go ahead and explore that path. Yeah. At the ball, she was very joyous, and she took the risk of being seen, even though she somewhere was feeling that she is not apt to be seen, or she is not worthy. But still, she took that leap of faith. And the outcome was she connected to a very, to the royal family. Thereby, she could grow, and she finally transformed into a queen or a princess, basically. So if the story was different, if her choices were different, if the emotional impacts were different, on her parents' death, she might have suppressed the grief and become numb. Stepmother's abuse would have made her feel, even lower, or she would have started mistreating people as well. Would have lost the faith, love within her, which actually she stood for. Invitation to the ball she would have denied and stayed at home and said, it's okay, I have nothing to dream about, and I can just go by as being, as I am right now. At the ball, she might have hidden, and she might have left early. She might have avoided attention, and she might have even denied the invite of the prince for a dance if she would have given into her self-talk. And what would be the outcome? She might have been still isolated. She might have just stagnated as Cinderella, and she would have lost the dream she had for herself, that she is better off from the situation she was in. So I feel that this story was very, has been always at my top of my mind. So I just thought this to bring a bit of perspective, how things can go wrong when you actually, make different choices. So coming to emotional loop. What is an emotional loop? Now, when I say loop, it is like an auto program that is running. There is a repeated trigger, emotion, thought, behavior pattern. This is similar or same. So this happens when the emotion is not processed. So mind loops back. There is a shame. Example, there was shame, there was a withdrawal, and then you end up in loneliness. Then again, that shame is actually reimposed. Then you again withdraw, and then loneliness, and you just go out of totally into isolation. This loop also is somewhere, it is also reinforcing a belief which is not positive, or I would say which is limiting. So your story of that belief is continuing. The story that you are identifying yourself, that you identify yourself or the situation with, right, seems to be reinforced. And over time, this behavior bypasses emotion and becomes automatic. So if I look at what is the difference between emotional loop and behavioral loop, not much. Everything starts from an emotion. Initially, one might feel stressed, and due to the stress after coming home, people, one person might start eating junk food. Over a period of time, it will so happen that his behavior will not need that stress as a trigger, and after coming home from office, the person will start eating junk food. So that is where the emotion bypass happens, but the behavior becomes automatic. So there is no emotional or a trigger needed to go into that behavior. So emotional loop and behavioral loop are closely related in this sense. When the behavioral loop becomes isolated is when emotion trigger doesn't need to require. For example, what I said, that once the person comes back from office, he automatically starts doing that. Then second is, at this time, a person feels like smoking. At this time, a person feels like drinking tea. These are behavioral loops which don't actually need an emotional trigger. But yes, initially when this habit was started, it was due to an emotional trigger. Now, anything that we do, it is helping us somewhere, isn't it? So where is it, this emotional loop helping us, or what it is doing for us, in a positive or a negative way, but it is doing something for us. Yeah. To suppress an emotion, we can use this emotional loop. Example is drinking to numb sadness. So a person is not handling the sadness, finding it, thinking through, feeling it fully, but overlapping, or rather substituting it with drinking habits, so that the emotion is no more bothers him. Manage an emotion. Overworking to cope with anxiety. A person is anxious, and as we say in the future, we look at more examples, we'll understand how anxiety can be coped in a different way. So manage an emotion of anxiety by doing more work, so that a coping mechanism is developed, which is not healthy. Avoid an emotion. Procrastinating to escape fear of failure. Generally, for me, thinking big, fear of failure comes, and then somewhere that avoidance happen, I start procrastinating things. So this is very, very, very resonating thing. Restore a desired emotion. So what happens is binge watching makes us feel relaxed or entertained. So in any random time of the day, our hands will go to the mobile, and it will start surfing. It will start obsessively looking at WhatsApp messages. It will make us go through emails, or it will make us go back to the binge watching, which we have in the watch list, to our OTT dramas that we would have happened. So these loops are basically repeating cycles. And if we are not watchful, if we are not reflective enough, if we are not very into the moment, we might just be going into these loops or auto programs. There are some loops which are adaptive, which are helping us. So that's the reason there is an emotional loop per se. So it has also a positive benefit to us, where it supports learning. If there is something new that comes in, we learn, we'll have to practice it a bit, so that it becomes into a loop, and it becomes into a behavioral loop or a habit. Any resilience, will have to also adapt to situations where things are out of our control. So we'll have to go into an adaptive loop and positive change. Limiting loops are repetitive reactions, but they somewhere might give a temporary relief, or seem to give an escape from the situation, but don't address the situation or the emotion in hand, and thereby reduce our freedom. That is, we are no longer making a choice, a conscious choice, and neither we are growing, because we don't look for alternatives. Right? Now, just based on the initial, if you say, remember in the day one, how I had defined the trigger, emotion, feeling, same way I have put in an example. There is a trigger, a friend cancels plans unexpectedly. Emotion is my stomach sinks, heart races, and chest tightens. The feeling is I feel disappointed and unwanted. Thoughts come that they don't really care about me. My behavior, or what I express, is rather, here the behavior is there that I withdraw. I don't say anything. I suppress my emotion. And or I can just send a cold message, right? What is the outcome of this? This is very important. Results of the behavior may reinforce emotion or thought. If we don't take control at the feeling level, we will come to the same outcome every time. And it will reinforce that this is how we have to deal with this emotion. This is how we can deal with the emotion. So this looping happens, and we keep on reinforcing to ourselves that this is the direction that we can or go. So we go into an auto mode after some time. So friends again pull away further, and they confirm, because we would have sent some message which somewhere we would have either shown a total what do you say, maybe we would have used some harsh words, or we would have withdrawn, right? We would have not asked any questions. So this friends would pull away further, and maybe that will again reinforce us also to believe that yes, I'm unwanted somewhere, right? Same reaction next time will automatically come. I don't have to even apply my mind. It will automatically come because the power of that one belief that I have, I am unwanted. I feel disappointed because I'm asking for a validation outside to feel my identity, my self-worth. This is the main thing which has to be addressed, which I'm not addressing. I'm just trying to distract myself saying all this and still withdrawing that uh, withdrawing with a rather a confirmation that I'm not unwanted, I'm unwanted and I'm not worth it, right? Any questions that anybody has? Anybody wants to add something here?
No, Manish, really just making us think so deeply, and that's amazing. So please carry on.
Okay. See, these examples I have taken more from my perspective where I can relate, but this is more also to understand a balance of whatever we all collectively might be undergoing from a work front. This I wanted very much to discuss here because I want to just give a flavor of how we normally think about each roles or each situation or area of life that we are. Right? If you can resonate, please note it down and you can give me a feedback at the end of the discussion. Or you also can give me a feedback that this doesn't work for you and this is how you feel. Yeah. So I'll just be mostly focusing on the reason aspect of it and the behavioral loop. Yeah. Okay. So work area or performance. So generally, this is where we tie our identity. Now, I'm just making and certain assumptions here, and I'm just trying to give an example and just an angle of reasoning. This might not resonate with you completely, but just for discussion's sake. Yeah. So generally, work or performance is where we tie our identity. If we are successful there, our self-worth is great, and if not, then that is where we feel the pressure because we want to perform there and we want to justify our identity or say that we are worthy and successful. Yeah. So typical behavior loop, because here we have fear of failure, overthinking, perfectionism, burnout, so these things get we feel these, so we start over checking our work again and again. We'll recheck so that before the report goes it's fine. We overwork so that we can compensate that somewhere we are lacking. Okay, I will do more work and justify that. Delaying feedback due to anxiety. We don't ask questions, we don't ask for more details, we don't ask for explanation from the higher. We just delay giving any feedback from our side and just try to accept what comes in our. So that is where we have to understand that the identity is not may not need to be linked there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it may backfire. Right? Relationship, intimate and social, both can be looked into. See, in a relationship, all we are looking at not only an emotional connection but a safety. We need some kind of a validation, right? Even if I do something good, somebody else comes and says, you did a good job. That gives a different satisfaction. And I think that is a basic human yearning we all have, that we require some kind of a motivation from us. But somewhere that should not be the only decisive factor for you, is where the care has to be taken. So validation all reside here. Wounds often surface unconsciously. Right? So we have some kind of a thing that we need, sometimes we need a close human connection so that we don't feel abandoned or we don't feel alone or we don't feel isolated. So these kind of emotions are linked to this relationships, which are very, very, we'll have to handle it carefully. Fear of abandonment, clinging or withdrawal, then there is an emotional conflict, and then more fear will come. All right. So we might not be able to justify the relationship we are in, and we might negotiate at each step. So repeating same patterns, silent treatment, overgiving, passive aggression, which I don't think works ever, rather than creating a distance between people. And sometimes we will go into a totally, kind of a looking out for validation kind of thing, that totally we don't identify with our own own identity, and we just go basis what other people feel we are worthy of, right? So it is this relationship also will reflect something of our identity, how we actually have built a relationship with ourselves. Now, time management or productivity. So time, again, time, work, productivity, this how do we manage? So we keep on juggling a lot of things, and basically it is linked to how we manage these many things. Do we get easily overwhelmed, or can we have a control on things in spite of things spirally going offline, that is off the track? Are we able to still keep a self control? Are we able to still have the confidence, have a settled feeling that we can, do it more on a positive? Do we trust ourselves enough, or the future vision that is there? So at times we might be really wanting, we tend to try hard, but not in the right way, maybe. So there will be an overwhelm that so much has to be done, and some might freeze, some might be prone with guilt, and that I could not do this, I'm not worthy enough. Then there can be a rush, there can be a compensating behavior. If I not do this, do something else, right? Burnout, and then again the loop will start, that again I feel overwhelmed, and this. So nowhere I take a pause to understand whether my capability is a problem, whether that was an isolated situation, whether I'm thinking of the past situation and behaving this in this current situation. So that pause is not there, so we go into a loop. So this ends up like a lot of hesitance in starting something, maybe a procrastination loop. Okay, nahi ho raha hai mujhse, I just get freezed and just I start scrolling. Some chronic replanning without action. So I keep planning the next day gloriously and again end up at the day end with the same outcome, and so forth. Health and body image. Health, body. So both essentially body is functioning and we are functioning through it. Health is something which nowadays again we have different kind of belief. Earlier I think I was not so very what do you say, had many ideas about health and all that, but now we are becoming more and more aware of it. There is a good part of it as well as some a bit scares also. So affects self-esteem, especially body image. People have attached their identities, or even we, each of us may identify to some extent. No, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I know I'm kind of I can't do this, I can't walk for a long time, I can't run, these kind of things. So affects how I look at myself, the discipline, emotional coping. Behaviors become deeply habitual. So when I assume that I am this kind, then I will not make any kind of an endeavor to come out of. So mostly where we see this in response to body is shame. Either we binge it or we restrict and go into too much of exercising maybe. Then guilt comes in, what we are not doing anything, or we seem to be stuck in the rut, and the movie again repeats. So this emotional eating is what comes out very strongly. Sometimes it seems to be fine, but every time same emotion comes, we tend to handle with emotional eating. Over exercising, some people want to have the specific body image, so they might tend to over exercise, or they have to prove something extra for ourselves. Body checking, late night habits. So not thinking too much and then not able to sleep, and basically again losing the faith to come back, and then that becomes a habit. This is the most important, I feel, especially in the Indian scenario, where we have been taught that we have to be kind to people, we should not back answer, or rather that was my upbringing. You should not talk back, you should not argue, you should not make a scene, raise too many questions, right? So conflict and assertiveness. Most people weren't taught healthy conflict. So conflict बोला ही तो सब थोड़ा भाग जाते हैं, ऐसा हो रहा है. So fear and people pleasing dominate here, right? So we tend to be more abideful as to not hurt hurt others' feelings, we are a bit more watchful, I would say, rather than sometimes we need to be blunt also that these things are disturbing, maybe not intentionally done. So here the fear of rejection is one thing. We are somewhere brought up in that manner is another thing. But in this thing, the funny thing is we never learn to go to the other option, that we can handle conflict in a more assertive and a confident manner, and also try to balance it out rather than continue to have that as a conflict, right? So we can, maybe we are not able to go into a habit of learning to handle conflict better because of fear of rejection. We go silent, we go resentment, and then suddenly there will be an explosion because we, and it will ultimately come out in a wrong way, or in a way which is not helping anyone. And then there is a regret which comes up. So we tend to avoid hard talks, then overreact and suppress again next time. Now, what is the effect of all this that is happening other than just that minor, feeling? It might bring up the regret or guilt. They affect both the inner state and external result. So we don't get the result which might be aiming, and the inner state also get disturbed. They often originate in early experiences and get reinforced daily. So if we don't catch them in the early experience, and if we have a total tendency of looking down at ourselves or others, or for the matter not looking for options or looking at the context, so our daily lives will be more on an auto mode, or a mode which doesn't explore options. They are deeply tied to identity, self-worth, and emotional safety, which is a very, where the alarm has to ring, that why do I have to drag my identity everywhere? Why do I have to always validate my self-worth? And why do I need to see something to feel emotionally safe? So these core things have to be addressed if I am not happy with my identity, self-worth, and emotional safety as well. Any questions so far?
Yeah, for me, I have a question. So this is all very deep, and you're helping us understand it. But then, how do we actually process this, or come to this understanding that what is exactly going on inside of us, and how do we deal with it? Is my like this thing? Maybe if you are about to cover it somewhere in the future, I'm okay. Like I'm just like this is what just popped up.
Yeah, see, the book runs parallel with its own way of unraveling emotional agility. Okay, so it started with a brief explanation what gets us hooked and how we have to get unhooked. So basically, all this coming out of this will get covered. But what I'm trying to parallelly discuss is in detail more examples for us to understand what is an emotional loop, how we get into that, right? And I have a brief that will say that, how to come out, which would come in the succeeding discussions. But yes, the book also will state more clearly. That's why we are reading the book, to take a reference from that how we can come out of it. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Mansi?
Yes. Very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So just I'm giving an thing that how we can break this just by an example. Harsh feedback in a meeting. My heart races, my shoulders tighten. I feel ashamed. My thought runs, I'm not smart enough for this role, I think. How can I unhook? I'm noticing I am having the thought that I'm not smart enough. So what can I do as a checkpoint or an additional thing there? I can either stay silent and just leave it as a fight for the next day or some other time, or ask questions, clarifying questions allied with my value to grow. So I can also say that, okay, some mistakes happen. Now I want to improve. Tell me how, or tell me where exactly do you think I went wrong. So asking these questions at least gives us a space to understand the situation much better. Ask clarifying questions or examples to improve. How I can improve from a better perspective, right? So this gives a feedback that I can gain clarity, reinforces my confidence, right, in myself. Because if I have confidence and I don't have an identity related issue, then I can, continue to have that without this, this continued thing that I am not, good for this role. So somewhere I have to break that thing that I am not good enough. So this asking questions, putting me into a situation where I try to find solution to come out of this situation, will give me a confidence and loosen this loop, right? Waken this loop. So as a question, you can ask yourself to notice this pattern. You might know, we can't notice all the things that goes on in the entire day, but we can start at least with these questions. Where in my life do I feel stuck, drained, or not myself repeatedly? So you might know that these things you have not handled so far, and they keep repeating. So, and some will feel draining, some will feel like you're stuck in that situation, not, and some you will feel, no, this is not me. This is, I think, being forced on me, or this is not what I am wanting to do. What behavior or reaction do I keep repeating even if I regret it later? Right? So this regret comes later, the guilt comes later, and that you can take as a signal that you are going in patterns, you are going into a loop. Right? Yeah. So this is what I had for today. And yeah.
Maniselvi, this reflective questions that you have given,
Hmm.
is it possible for us or you to give it to us so that we can actually dwell upon them and actually come to some
Yeah. I will post it on the group if you want.
yeah, whatever, like I would suggest that whatever you're taking us through now, I think this and obviously this book itself is so deep that it's actually very subjective as well, right? Like whatever we learn, we need to just introspect it, how is this relevant for me, in for each one of us. So if you
Right.
have anything that is reflective every day that you're sharing, do please post so that we can actually work upon it simultaneously as we are reading, and also taking us into so much of depth. It will benefit like in a different way.
Right. So if there are no more, are there any comments? Milind, Suman?
Yeah, just a quick addition. As Mansi just mentioned, thanks for taking us into deep of this subject. Yes, this is our reading session, but I love this one, the very thing which you said, the binge watching. Yes, I used to watch Netflix a lot after pandemic, but then I joined the B group, and that actually changed. The actually now I utilize my time reading the books, and this type of session really helps me. The chart which you showed, the different areas of life like office, relationship, and all that, definitely I say I'm not 100% or 10 out of 10 on that one. I'm on different scale, but definitely I need to go through the today's content recordings and need that kind of reflection, because yeah, you actually in this today's session is actually connected with my practices. And yes, definitely when you go through this reflection, the very we first question comes into mind, okay, so what are the practice, let me dive into the practice and get rid of these emotions and all that. Just on that one, my take is, yes, we like to jump into the practices, but what we are doing here, or Mansilvi, you come up with is really good. In the first session we understood what the emotions are. Now we are going slowly in depth, doing the reflection with these questions. So please do share those questions, for the reflection on different areas. So that's really good. Another, while going through this thing, another example just I want to give very quickly. When we go through these exercises, we came across exercises or any techniques and all that, we really feel that, oh, this is really nice, it's working for me. So don't miss, again, this is my honest this thing, don't go and teach others about that, because everyone has their own mental model. And I realized that through example, like once something works for me, I immediately I starting telling my husband or my wife and all that, because they are not ready for it. Now since we are reading this book last 3-4 days, at least we are in one zone, we are slowly starting understanding emotions, but my wife is not on the same zone. Why I'm telling that, because that is what one of the example I can give, how everyone has their own emotional patterns, own emotional mental model, everyone, because when I joined one of the company in India, I was there for just for 6 months. On fourth month, there one of my colleague, okay, he came to the office little bit late. He was in working in my group, so I asked him like, why you are late? And he elaborated a story what happened that morning. He actually went to drop her wife to her place, and there is a and it is a little bit horrible story actually. So someone actually, the thief actually in train, thief, he cut her ring finger, and took the ring off, okay, and ran away. And they realize that after little bit of after 5 or 10 minutes that her hands is bleeding. So didn't realize that her actual finger is cut and golden ring taken away, okay. So he told that story in the 10 o'clock in the morning. So see, my response to that situation is, okay, so you told this story to me, but you don't have to repeat and tell everyone, because everyone will ask you about this thing. Because once you gone through some incident, and if you repeat that every time repeat story, you are going to suffer that again and again. Because yeah, he went to the hospital, admitted her wife and all that. So that was my interpretation, saying that if you tell this story to everyone in office, you are going to suffer a lot, okay. But he didn't listen to me. Throughout the day he was telling the same story to different groups, okay. And on that day I realized that everyone has their own way of dealing with the problems, and there is no me point telling all these methods and this thing to everyone. The person in front should be ready for that, so just sharing the example that yeah, sometimes we are so happy with the method or the release technique on this thing which we get released from, or we found a solution, we start sharing with others. Yes, some people are ready, some are not, but yeah, we need to practice for ourselves. So today's session is, I think, it's for myself to reflect on my own emotional this thing. And as I mentioned yesterday also, yes, this is a deep topic actually. I need to individually work on this, all the questions and reflection. I completely 100% agree that yes, this reflection question do help when you apply those to in day-to-day life. All the session you already covered. And very last example is, yes, there is a psychological test happen. They what they did in nursery kids or 3-4 years kid, they asked one group of people, kids actually, to wear the police inspector dress, and other they are the bad people, and all that. And those are two groups, and they ask them to be in a one room. So what happened is, all those police dress kids, okay, they do not have any real life experience and all, they are just kids. But since they are police, they start beating the other people, other kids. Those are goons or this thing, because it is how person identify with their dress and identity with their roles, etc. So that is very lovely example I read. I really sync with it. Yes, all this the status and race and where we live and everything, yes, definitely it affects the way we behave and everything. So yeah, thanks Manselvi, awesome session actually. I really love this type of sessions where we actually go in depth and find out something which is helpful for everyone. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Manselvi. Thank you.
Thank you. See, the idea more is, yes, as Milind said that, we can't give ready-made answers. So my attempt is at least to bring a background as to go in more details where one has to think, reflect. And yes, all these emotional related exercises, if one has to do, it has to be built into our habit system in our routine, and it cannot be so easy for everyone. Some might also have been reaching that level. It's easy for them to pick it up, but some might need more deep work. So what I'm trying to decipher in first addressing emotion, then going into how we actually perceive things, and it might not be the real. And third is the loop. Now next, how this loop is actually hindering us from growing is what is my next tomorrow's topic would be. Yeah, so thank you for your patient hearing and time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Maniselvi. It
Thank
was
you.
just awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all people are
Thank you,
doing
everyone.
great job. The sessions are truly insightful and wonderful. These are eye openers for me. And how you are presenting, they are really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, yeah.
Okay, see you tomorrow, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.